Joining me now, Simon Rosenberg, former Clinton campaign advisor and president and founder of the New Democrat Network, and Mark Thiessen, who's a former Bush speechwriter and fellow for the American Enterprise Institute. Guys, welcome. Simon, let me start with you on this, because we've even had some Democrats come on the show and say, no, you can't. The president doesn't get just to decide when to raise the debt limit by himself. You need congressional approval for that, and that shouldn't change. Obviously, Harry Reid feels differently. The president feels differently. Where do you stand on it?
Well, I think the president is right to say that this is an extreme measure and it was used irresponsibly last year, and that it shouldn't be used willy-nilly like a budgetary process. It hurt the economy when we did the debt ceiling deal last year.
And just to clarify, just to tell the viewers what you're talking about, because the Republicans, in exchange for raising the debt limit last time around, said we'll do it, but there have to be spending cuts to offset the amount of debt we're going to go up. Go ahead.
And what I don't like about the debt ceiling process is that, we have for 200 years a process to create budgets. So it's Congress, and there are committees, and things are supposed to go through both houses and then get voted on. And I think this is going outside the democratic process and using sort of an extreme measure, which did grave harm to the economy and, frankly, grave harm to the political prospect. The Republicans' numbers went down much more than Barack Obama's did last summer when the deal got done. So I think they have to be very careful about what they're doing here.
Your thoughts, Mark?
Well, I think the reason Simon doesn't like it is because it gives Republicans leverage to force the president to deal with the debt. I mean, look, this has about as much the president has about as much chance of succeeding in getting Congress to give up this power as you have of getting John Bolton to cry on your show. I mean, the reality
I think I can do it. Is that a challenge?
I bet you can. I bet you can. But look, in the last 27 years, every significant debt reduction bill that has passed, starting with Graham-Rudman in '85 all the way through today, has been linked to a debt limit increase. This is the only tool in Washington that forces both sides to do something about the debt and spending. And so Republicans aren't going to give this up because it's the only tool they have in this political situation to stop the president from going forward. And the reality is, last year, Speaker Boehner set an important precedent. He set what he called the Boehner rule: $1 for every dollar of debt limit increase, $1 of commensurate spending cuts, $1 per dollar. And Senator Rob Portman has actually calculated, if you stick to the Boehner rule, dollar per dollar spending cuts for debt limit increase, you balance the budget in 10 years without raising taxes. So Republicans aren't giving this up anytime, and quite frankly, neither are Democrats. There's no votes for it.
Simon, do you see any irony in the fact that President Obama now wants to eliminate Congress from the process of approving a debt ceiling increase, when he was a senator, he voted against raising the debt limit and said, in part, in justifying his vote, we're debating raising the debt limit today, and that is a sign of leadership failure. He said, this is a quote, "Increasing America's debt weakens us domestically and internationally. Leadership means that the buck stops here. Instead, Washington is shifting the burden of bad choices today onto the backs of our children and grandchildren. America has a debt problem and a failure of leadership. America deserves better."
Well, Megyn, it is true that when Bill Clinton left office in 2000, we had surpluses, and the deficit would have been eliminated completely by the time that we sit here today. And what changed that was a Republican Congress and a Republican president. I mean, the thing that put us on the path that we're on now is not Democrats. It's Republicans who put us on this path of big deficits. We would have had no debt, collective debt at all right now if we had left in place the Clinton budgetary strategy. So
what do you make of that quote?
So what I'm responding to, what you said, is that, look, I think what we're dealing with is a very temporal thing right now. We're going through tough negotiations. We're going to have a new budgetary process early next year. And the idea that the Republicans in February, of next year would invoke the debt ceiling thing all over again to drive the markets down, harm the American economy, create chaos and uncertainty all over again. I just think what the president's saying is we can't go through that again, right? We've got to use the normal process.
But here he is wanting not only to raise it, but to have uniform authority to raise it. And just a few years ago, he was saying that was a failure of leadership, that Americans deserve better.
He may not get it, but what he's right to argue is the way the Republicans have been doing this has been irresponsible. Let's use the committee process, come up with tax reform, spending cuts next year. Let's get this done in the way that our democracy has worked for hundreds of years, not this new extraordinary thing. And I think he's right to put pressure on the Republicans to drop this.
Let me ask you, Mark, is there something new and extraordinary? Because I thought it was the Democrats who were trying to make this part of the deal to to stop us from going off the fiscal cliff, that they said, oh, and by the way, we also need to raise the debt limit, or now this new proposal of eliminate Congress from the process of raising the debt limit?
Well, a couple things. First, Senator McConnell has offered to have an up or down vote on this, and the Democrats haven't taken him up on it, so obviously they don't want to vote for it. Number two, all of the debt limit, all of the spending reductions that Simon cited in the 1990s under Bill Clinton were tied to the debt limit increase. And the this, okay? President Obama, it gives Republicans leverage. President Obama right now has all the leverage in the fiscal cliff fight because he's perfectly willing to let taxes go up on the middle class. You can reverse a tax increase. In the debt limit fight, he doesn't have that same leverage because the consequences are so much worse. And Bob Woodward, in his book about the last debt limit fight, pointed out something Republicans didn't know at the time, that Tim Geithner had said to President Obama that if the Republicans stick to their guns on the debt limit bill they passed, you cannot veto it, that the consequences would be so calamitous that you cannot veto it. So Obama would have capitulated if the Republicans had stood their ground.
Well, that's what Simon's saying now, is that we shouldn't be putting the country in that position where we're going to be, you know, it's catastrophic if we don't get the increase.
The only way we are going to get action on this debt, what's catastrophic, is if we keep spending and spending and spending and raising our debt by $6 trillion every Obama term. That's what's catastrophic. So Republicans need to stick to the Boehner rule, $1 of spending cuts for every $1 of debt limit increase. And once the fiscal cliff fight is over, they've got all the leverage come February when this comes. So why give in right now on taxes in the fiscal cliff fight when you're going to have all the leverage in the debt limit fight 2 months from now?
We have not heard the last of this. Very quick, Simon, quickly.
So in the Rasmussen poll that came out today, the Republicans have lost 10 points since the election in Congress, in the congressional generic fight. They're losing this economic argument right now, and if they pull what Mark's saying, I mean, you're going to see the Republican Party's numbers in the 20s next year. They have no leverage here on this thing.
Okay.
Not going to happen. We're going to force the president to cut
All right, we'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that,
We'll come back, Mark.
You.
Let's do it again in a few weeks.
You know you're going to.
I'm ready for you, Simon.
Thank you both. Thank you both.
Okay.
Well, just ahead.